Hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar, How to Improve Your Plasma Consumable Management. This time a webinar in which Voortman Steel Machinery and Hypertherm team up to share their knowledge and expertise in the field of plasma consumable management. During this webinar you can ask your questions in our live chat and our chat team is available to answer your questions. Some of these questions will be addressed at the end of this webinar by our speakers. So please don't hesitate to ask your questions, we're more than happy to answer them. After this webinar you will also receive the full recording. My name is Olga and I'm the host for today. And I first would like to introduce you to our speakers. Next to me is Joey Scheur, Business Unit Manager of the Plate Processing Machines at Voortman. Next to him, Stef Rohaan, Product Manager of the Plate Processing Machines at Voortman. And last but not least, Timo Legger, Consumable Sales Manager of Hypertherm. For those of you who don't know Voortman or Hypertherm yet, maybe it's good to have a short introduction of both companies. We're sitting here in this beautiful Voortman Experience Center in the Netherlands. It's the demo, showroom and training center of Voortman. Behind me you see some of the plate processing machines, but on the other side of this building we also have some beam processing machines. Joey, can you shortly introduce Voortman?
Olga, thanks for the introduction. Yes, I can. So you already explained we produce beam processing systems and plate processing systems. We are a manufacturer of steel processing systems in general. We focus today on thermal cutting, and with thermal cutting we cut angles, but also H-beams, but also plates and tubes as well. And we do that for a variety of industries. So we supply to steel fabrication, which we see in the video, but we also supply to steel service centers, general manufacturing, pressure vessel manufacturing, windmill manufacturing and even shipbuilding. So quite a wide variety of industries. We have today, I think, quite an international audience. Yeah. And we are also quite an international organization because we are here in our headquarters, like you mentioned, but we also have subsidiaries in the United States, in Southeast Asia, and in the entire western part of Europe we have various subsidiaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So quite an international organization with an extensive product portfolio for a variety of markets. And Hypertherm is the other party of this webinar. Can you explain and introduce Hypertherm?
Yes, thanks a lot. I'm very appreciated to be here and part of this webinar. Hypertherm, manufacturer in cutting solutions in different segments like steel manufacturers, metal service and shop shops, agriculture and stuff like that. We develop machines for high industrial like our new XBR and HBR, for light industrial like our PowerMax and also water jet and all the related equipment around that. Our headquarters is in the USA, in New Hampshire, it's nearby Boston, and for sure all the located business units, facilities around the world.
Okay. Thank you, Timo. So now that we've introduced ourselves to you, we are also curious about you as a participant of this webinar. For example, what industry are you in? A poll appears on your screen right now. And can you let us know in which industry you're in? Are you, for example, a steel processor, or are you a machinery equipment manufacturer, or a steel fabricator? Please select your answer. So, back to the topic of this webinar, plasma consumable management. You might already be well underway with your plasma consumable management, but today we're going to present some smart solutions and ways to take it to the next level. An interesting question to ask to you first is, do you think you're changing your consumables at the right time? Again, a poll appears on your screen. So, do you think you're changing your consumables at the right time? Then choose yes, or that's what I aim for, I hope so, or you don't know. We come back to the answers later on in this webinar. So the Voortman plate processing machines and robotic cutting machines are equipped with a Hypertherm plasma source. One cannot function without the other, and both complement each other very well in terms of solutions and nice features. And to show you this, we run a real cutting demo today. And Joey is standing at the Voortman V310 plate drilling and cutting machine and is ready to show you some nice features. Let's take a look where and how to start.
So Works Preparation has prepared some nests and also scheduled them for a certain day. The operator comes in and sees at the machine what kind of nestings had to be run that specific day. He selects those nestings, so we select them for that specific day, and we take them into production. What's important is that FACAM allows that multiple nestings can be added to the production list and can be run fully automatic as long as no manual tool changes have to be required in between. So what's important is that the operator optimizes the sequence so those manual tool changes are not required in between. For this, we offer the sequencing function. The operator activates the sequencing function, and the sequencing function informs the operator about the tool overlap between nestings. For instance, if we select nesting 1, we see that the power, the torch itself, overlaps with several other nestings. So we can select those nestings as well. And then those will be run fully automatic without in-between changes. What's important is that not only the power is relevant for a torch change, it is also consumable wear. For this, the sequencing function offers also information about the consumable life and when the consumable life is exceeded somewhere in the production list. For instance, if we only select job 1, we don't exceed consumable life, no consumable changes are required for that specific job. If we select job 2 as well, we see that the consumable life is exceeded with job 2. So now we apply the new sequence and we can start production. The sequence is now optimized for automatic production. The operator is informed when a consumable change is needed, so that production quality is maintained.
So some interesting interactive features. And I think a related topic where we spoke about this morning, Steph, is about cutting different thicknesses and requiring different torches.
Yeah, that's true. So you need different torches to cut different thicknesses of sheets. So for the thicker sheets you want to use higher amperages, and for the thinner sheets you want to use lower amperages. But you have a lot of different consumables, like for example an electrode, a nozzle, a swirl ring, and you need to use the right consumables with the right amperage to cut a sheet. And a work preparator needs to make sure that he chooses the right amperage to cut when he is creating a nesting, because you want to cut at the right speed but also achieve the right quality.
Yeah, and I think the Hypertherm quality levels also fit in nicely.
Yes. On our HPR we recommend a sweet spot. The sweet spot is even in the middle of the cut charts on each cutting process. For example, when you select 130M, the cut chart shows a range between 3 mm up to 38 mm. The sweet spot for 130M is between 8 and 12 mm. This is the optimal cutting range for the best quality. On our XPR technology, we give the opportunity to the customer to can select the right process for his best profitability. That means we select it in the different ranges. For example, that you can see in the picture, 1 to 5. So the customer can choose by himself which cutting process they want to prefer.
So you give way more guiding lines for the customer depending on what they want to achieve.
Exactly. That is what we figure out during our visits, that we would like to give the opportunity to the customer to choose the best profitability they can achieve, right? And for example, a couple of customers doesn't care about quality, and a couple of customers want to have a good quality. So, and we face also, I have a couple of end users that said, yep, I would like to cut as fast as possible, right? So they have also opportunity to change in that specific ranges. So our recommend from Hypertherm is still range 1, because this is the correct speed regarding to the correct thickness and the best outcome you can achieve.
Yeah, clear story, Timo. The consumable proposal is also something related to that, isn't it, Steph?
Yeah, indeed. So we use those cutting qualities and the quality levels and the cutting charge in Sigma Nest. We use Sigma Nest to create nestings for our machines, and we help the work preparator. So when he selects a sheet thickness, then Sigma Nest will calculate, okay, I need that amperage to achieve a good quality and a good speed. But as what Timo said is that he can also choose to cut faster or slower, but we want to help him making the choice. And in the end, Sigma Nest makes the nesting, and the nesting is used on the machine. So FACAM knows which amperage has been selected by the work preparator, and FACAM will inform the operator which torch needs to be mounted with which consumables to make sure that they make the right choice and prevent mistakes.
Okay, so you complement each other very well and ease the operator.
Yeah.
I think we can start processing. Joey, can you talk me through what do we see here?
Yeah, so in the video we see a part being cut. And what's important is that before we start cutting, we always do an initial height sense. And we do that to define the top surface of the plate. We do that because we want to maintain a height between the nozzle and between the plate. So we measure first, then we move to a piercing point, which we can see in the video. Then we start cutting, and then we measure the arc voltage, which is the arc length. And that is actually the length between the electrode and between the plate. What happens now is during the consumable life, so when you move towards the end of life, the electrode wears down and that arc becomes longer because the electrode becomes shorter, at least in the middle. Now when the arc becomes longer, the torch will normally move down towards the sheet. But for the cutting quality, it is important that the nozzle remains at the same height from the sheet at the start of the consumable life as at the end of the consumable life.
Yeah.
So what we do is we touch the sheet, and then we start off cutting, and then we measure the actual arc voltage. So we correct for that consumable wear, and we do that at the point where the arc is stable, of course.
Yeah, so to enable that, a stable arc is very important.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay, and I think Hypertherm is also focusing on that.
Yes, I guess the arc stability, specifically what you said, is a great improvement on our XPR technology, because this technology improved the steadiness, specifically on the pierce and also the lead in, because you get a sharper arc before you start cut, and which is the main improvement because you avoid less waste material and also can reduce a lot of operational cost.
Yeah, and this is the shorter lead-ins, and with that a better nesting, reduced waste.
Exactly. So that what you saw in that picture is that on the left side you have the HBR, and you see all of the quality issue in the beginning of the cut, right? And for our XPR you get a sharper arc, and the steadiness of the arc is much more tight in the beginning of the cut. And this is the big improvement on our XPR.
So even with the shorter lead-in, you don't see that rippling effect.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great improvements where quality for our end user is top priority. But I think it's time for some action now. Steph, talk me through, what do we see here?
Okay, yeah, we will see the Voortman V310 cutting a plate, and what it's doing right now is performing a scrap cut. So a lot of our customers are doing scrap cutting to making handling of the material and the waste material a lot better. So what happens with scrap cutting is that the torch will reach the end of the plate, and in a lot of cases it will even overrun the plate. So what we see right now is that the torch is overrunning the plate, but luckily it stops cutting immediately. So that prevents the torch and consumables from being damaged. And that's important because when they damage, you have a lot of cost to replace them. And of course you have machine downtime because you need to replace the torch. So Hypertherm introduced the arc ramp down protection, and we use it to make sure that the maximum output of the machine is possible.
Yeah. So automatic ramp down protection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is, thanks for that. And this is what we would like to help the customer, right? To reduce the cost, and how to do that to help also that the consumable life extend. And specifically with what you can see in this video is the arc is going to stretch until it breaks up, and the consumable life goes down much, much faster. And with our protection, the chopper module sense when the cut is about the end in an uncontrolled manner. and automatically initiate a ramp down sequence for protecting the electrode. I mean, the benefit on that is to protect the electrode, dramatically extend it up to 3 times. And I think this is a very, very good improvement for saving costs and protecting for sure the consumables.
Yeah. And you use the same technology for the torch protection?
Yes, for the torch protection itself, what you can see in this video, I think this is what you figure out a lot of time in front of the customer, right? You can see the hafnium pit here is going to blow out uncontrolled, which can damage the torch at the high current level. And this is what you see in a few seconds. And you see that the arc is going up, is stretching, and then the electrode blows up. So, but with our automatic torch protection, we try to reduce the impact of catastrophic electrode blowout, which can damage the torch at the current level. The chopper would you sense, in this specific case, the torch onset of the catastrophic electrode and shut down the system, protecting the torch from the potential damage and potentially enabling improvement consumable utilization. And this is, I guess, a very great improvement as well.
And here we talk really about the real end of life of the electrode.
Yes, this is what we would like to avoid. In a specific amperage range, in the higher amperage range, you would like to avoid that the total torch blows up, right? And the torch is quite expensive, and this is what you can see very, very often. They try to cut until the end of the electrode life, and then it's exactly what's happened. The hafnium pit depth is going up, it's not exist anymore, water comes down and the torch blows up. So and this is what we would like to avoid, specifically on our new technology.
Yeah, and as an end user, as I understand correctly, you don't want to reach that end point of end of life, right? And maybe it's a good moment to look at the poll results we did at the beginning. We asked you, do you think you're changing your consumables at the right time? And I see that most of you answered yes, that's what I aim for. Some of you hope to do it, and some of you just don't know. But guys, most of them think they are changing the consumables at the right time. But is that also something we see in practice?
Specifically, the operator do not something wrong, right? Because they do it because there are habits they have during the day and they try to make it as best as possible. But when, during the 7 years I work for Hypertherm, I enter all the time end users and look in the used consumable box, because the used consumable box is the open box to see how the machine is running and how they use consumables. And I think this is a great indicator to start with the discussion, right? What you can improve. And for example, I pick up a lot of electrodes out and see the electrodes are used completely, used correctly or used not correctly, and then we are starting discussion, right? And also when you see in the nozzle, for example, the nozzle is an open book how the machine is working. And also the ratio between swirl rings and electrodes is, for example, 1:1. I think this is quite nice to start the discussion on how to improve the consumable utilization in the end to reduce also a lot of costs. And I would not say that operators are doing a lot of things wrong. That's for sure not, but we can definitely improve a lot of things to make it easier and also reduce operational costs.
I think, Timo, we have similar results at our customers. So I think a nice story is that even at our own production site, you see that operators quite often, they change consumables before they start a job, or they change it after a job when it's perhaps too late and you can scrap your parts. And for instance, before the job, they do it to be able to walk away from the machine and do other errands or jobs around production. So they just want to run automatic, and then they think, okay, let's just change the consumables now. And then we're not talking about changing it a bit too early, but you see that some consumables are only used up to 30% of their life. So it's not a minor increase, but you can increase quite a bit still in the life.
Absolutely. This is the second part of the discussion when we discover the electrodes and nozzles and swirl rings. We also talk about when the operator feels it's the right moment to change the consumables, or how they recognize to change consumables, right? And even there is arguments, or it's what they said, or the feedback I gave, or I got is the color change to orange, for example. You see that this indicator that the electrode is almost blow up. Also the quality is going down. And the second one is they hear that, I mean, the frequency is going up. And I say, okay, that's good to know, but actually it's too late, right? Because then you become much more waste material and also less quality on that product and your products. And then therefore we start how to make sure that we track the consumables correctly, and you have a very great tool to make that happen, right? And also the end user in the end get a good feeling to go somewhere else to make a nice work out of plasma, right? And see, okay, I have a lot of time, and then I have to start checking out the consumables. Okay, now it's the time for changing the consumables.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because I feel the problem is often that indeed, like you said, customers are just waiting at the machine and seeing the process, hearing the process, and then know exactly at that moment, okay, now I reached perhaps my end of life, I'm going to change them now. And I think a nice feature what we developed is that we now help the operators to define a time when they have to be at the machine. So we call that the operator dashboard, and in the operator dashboard, and we have a video of that, we try to visualize, okay, it will take a half an hour or it will take 6 minutes until a consumable change is required. So the operator doesn't have to be at the machine until it is around the time that the consumables have to be changed. He can do other errands and things somewhere else in the production, but when he nears the moment of change, he gets that information from the machine. So he knows when to be there, and then he can use that information, okay, I have to change them now.
Exactly, and this is fantastic, and this is even what I would like to train operators when you have to exactly change the consumables. So you can see, I calculate my cutting behind the meters, right? I have to cut so many meters and then I have to change consumables. Or I have a lot of pierces, because it's also different if I have cut just meters or I have to cut a lot of holes, right? And this costs also the quality of the consumables in the end. And so you can very easily look in the software, okay, now I have, I don't know, let's say 1000 starts, for example, and then I have to change. Or just to make sure that after the 1000 I have a quick check if the consumables are in a good condition. And this is a nice indicator to do that.
Yeah, and we allow for that flexibility. So you can change starts, meters, those variables based on what the job needs or what the customer thinks is the bottom line of quality. You can change those parameters, and the machine just turns it into a time. So that is what the software is doing. It takes those parameters the operator filled in or what they define at the company, and then changes it into a time. Okay, then you have to be there around roughly that time to see if the consumables are still.
In the end, it's a decision of the end user, right? When you change something, and also you have to understand the how they cut and what is the probability of them. So I have to cut fast, I have to cut slow, or I have to cut behind the settings. It doesn't matter, but you have to understand what the operator wants, and the operator itself has to understand what the plasma process are, right? And this is in the end the key to measure.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah, I think you guys mentioned all kinds of things that help the operator decide what's the best thing to do or the right thing to do at the specific moment. But we're speaking about plate processing machines right now. But I can imagine that we also have some people in our audience who process beams as well. So let's take a look at the poll results we did at the beginning. We asked you, in what industry are you in? And I see some steel processors, some machinery and equipment manufacturers, for which plate processing is of course very relevant. But I also see some steel fabricators.
Yeah, it's nice to see that we all have a lot of steel fabricators, because the next feature we want to show is a feature about multi-thickness processing. So we can show that at the V807.
Yes.
So shall I go over there?
Yes. Okay, Steph is going to the V807 and is ready to show you how to deal with multi-thickness cutting of beams. Let's take a look.
So I'm here at the Voortman V807. This is the machine you just saw in the video. The 807 is one of the machines which is capable of processing multi-thickness products. Over here we have an example of a multi-thickness product. A profile of course has a web and a flange, but those are not always from the same thicknesses. But there are holes in as well the flanges as the web. We use Hypertherm through-hole technology to determine which torch can be used best to cut those holes with the best quality. It could be that several torches can be used to meet the through-hole technology, and then we will look to the other cuts in the beam. We will select the best torch for all the operations, and VCAM will calculate within a second what is the best torch and inform it to the operator. So it's much more easy for the operator to select the right torch because the machine will inform him. Summarized, the machine will look to the holes and make sure that the best quality is achieved. Then it will look to the other cuts in the profile. The operator will be informed and you will have the best quality of cuts in your product.
So Steph was referring to XPR through hole. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yes, when I discussed with customers about through hole, they even got the expectation or the feedback, this not look like a perfect hole, right? You can see in the video the technology behind the through hole itself. But when we are talking about a perfect cutting hole, we have to understand which process and which quality we want to get. The perfect hole will be equal in the circular dimension throughout the entire body of the hole. So the expectation to get the perfect hole are quite different from customer to customer, specifically on plasma. But what is important specifically on through hole instead of without are the reliability. When you cut 100 holes, a simple bolt has to go through the material after the last cut as well. And I think this is an important thing that customer has to understand, right? The reliability that a simple bolt has to go through during the whole process.
Reliability, I think, allows for automation, because if you have a stable process, then you can automate it.
Exactly.
And predict also when the end of life is what you still allow.
Yes. And when your customer would like to have a good feeling on the cutting process, not even on the consumables, also from the cutting process itself, you have to make sure that the process works, right? And I think through hole is a great solution for that, to have that. And I really recommend to use through hole for cutting.
Yeah, we spoke about all kinds of different technologies and software features in the field of plasma cutting. But do you also have some hands-on tips and tricks the audience can already implement today or start with today?
Yes, we also have different solutions. So I think Steph mentioned that, but Thiel mentioned that as well, that we're talking often about nozzle and electrode, but you have quite a wide variety of consumables. Especially in thicker material processing, you see that upspraying slag potentially can damage the outer consumables. So we advise customers to use our multi-processing machines, but drilling those holes already, or pre-piercing those holes with all the consumables, and then you save money on consumables at the end of the year, especially in those thicker materials.
Okay.
Yeah, so in speaking about consumable management, the red tooling system comes to mind. So over here we have a red tooling system in the Experience Center. It's a tool management system in which consumables are stored, but there is a software on it, so it makes the system smart, and it will make sure that you always have the right consumable at your disposal. So you don't want the consumables to be the reason for machines downtime. So when you need consumables, you can go to the red tooling system, you fill in what consumable you need, and it will tell you in which drawer and which bin it is. And it will also make sure that it will be replenished at the right time to make sure you will always have your consumables. So Voortman offers it together with the service label agreements. And that's because we want to partner up with our customers. And I think you're doing the same thing with the retention program.
Exactly. Our retention program fits completely with yours, and I guess there's a great improvement to do that together. Specifically also, first of all, we want to help an end user to understand the cutting process, and they make the best out of it, right? And when I visit customers and go to customers, I would like to discuss with him what are the bottlenecks, how is the improvements, and what we can do to make the best quality out of it, right? And we are starting discussion with the consumable utilization, for example, and also to have a wider view on the plasma process for loading the plates, unloading the plates, and also about the quality itself. For example, TROS, when I discuss with customers, for a couple of customers TROS is important, for other customers TROS is not so important because there's a speed important, right? And to try to identify what's important for the customer. And when we are going, for example, TROS, and we would like to remove the TROS because you have a couple of person behind the process to grind, right? You have the one person the first shift, the second person is a third person, sometimes also a couple of more. But how to reduce that simple stuff to put that guys in another workload, for example, for make more important stuff like grinding TROS, right? Because we can remove that. But how to remove it, what you can do to make your quality much better, right? And this is what we are trying to solve during our consumable management program together with our partners. So please, dear customer, go to your table manufacturer, discuss with Voortman. This is a perfect candidate to help you in this case, right? And discuss your bottlenecks and how to improve your business, how to improve your quality and also the profitability, and how we can reduce your operational cost together. And I think this is the key what we have to do together, specifically in customer front, to help them as much as we can.
Yeah, so you're not only looking at the cutting activity, you're looking at the whole chain of activities.
Exactly. For example, how to lead in, because in the end, the arc on time, right, is 20%, 30%, right? And we are discussing about cutting, but what's about loading and unloading, right? How to improve that one, how to make sure that the operational cost itself we can reduce as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I think this is important right now to discuss with an operator or also with the project managers in the facilities what we can do to improve. And
I feel the same way. So indeed, it is not only about the machine, it's about software solutions, about training, about you can do all kinds of stuff to optimize the whole link of activities, from works preparation to final production.
Exactly.
Yeah, all very useful tips and tricks. But maybe it's time for the questions. In case you did not ask your question yet, now is the time to do so. So we're going to take a look at the versatility of plasma. And in the meantime, you can still ask your question in our live chat, and we'll be back in a bit to answer your questions. So I see some interesting questions came in. The first question, what kind of other features do you have to extend unmanned production?
Yeah, we have a couple. So, for example, we of course have the sequencing, the scheduling and the buffering for the plates to enable you to do unmanned mode of unmanned cutting on the machine, but we also have a feature called unmanned mode. So that feature will make sure that the machine only performs operations which can be done without interference of an operator. So for example, if you want to pre-drill a lot of holes before cutting the next day, you can do that overnight, and you can select unmanned modes to make sure that the operator doesn't have to be at the machine. And you need a lot of tools for that. It could be if you need several diameters or something. So you can add an auxiliary tool changer. It's also over here at the V310. It's a tool changer in the front or in the end of your cutting table. and yeah, it will give you more positions for your tools. So yeah, then you can run unmanned for a longer time.
Okay, thank you. Next question, I think this one is for Hypertherm. What is the Hypertherm recommended consumable change?
Yes, this is a fantastic question. I guess this is what we didn't mention in the previous conversation, right? But let's keep it simple. I have some consumables here on the table. What I even try to train is we have to check the electrode, because the electrode is the key indicator of all related quality issues and stuff like that, because we have the hafnium depth in, and the hafnium blows up, right? And the hafnium has also a length of couple of millimeters, but in the end you have to make sure, and this is also to have to measure, for example, 1.3 millimeter is the maximum for have a good quality. And when you measure the consumables, the depth, for example, then you have to change also the nozzle together with the electrode. But this is even the part you have to change together. This is much important, because the hafnium comes out, and how to say, it's like a layer coming up in the end of the nozzle, and therefore it's very important to change nozzle and electrodes together. When we have the swirling, for example, the swirling is very important, but this is what I figure out in front of the customer is when I ask how often you change the swirling, and basically they say, I don't change it because it looks fantastic. No, it's not true, because you have a couple of holes here and you cannot really, it's not visible to see if it's closed or open. But we recommend as Hypertherm, but don't nail me on the wall, right? We say 20 to 25 to 1, because when you change the electrode 20 times, you have to change the swirling as well. The same is with the inner retaining cap and also with the outer retaining cap. But the outer retaining cap is a little bit different, because you get also a couple of problems during the cut, right? The torch is scratching the table or is jumping on the plates or stuff like that, and you have a couple of scratches on the outer retaining cap, and that you have to make sure that the hole is completely surrounded and in good condition. Therefore, recommend to change that 25 to 1. As I said, it's the same like the swirling. But be careful that the surface of the rounding are in a very good condition. Otherwise, you have to change much often. Yeah, that's actually how to change that. And in the end, you have to clean up everything, right? Also the torch, you have to inspect also the torch. You have to check the torch if it's clean, is no oil or sand or stuff like that inside. And yeah, but you have a lot of temperature coming out, right? And therefore make sure that everything is perfect. But I forgot also the shield. The shield is also important, because when the dross is coming up and is coming on the surface, you can clean it up with a brush, or I don't know what you have, or you can put also some material on that it don't stuck so deep, but you can remove it as very easily. But you have to check that the surrounding here, the hole is also in the good condition. And another interesting part is, for example, when you change from 130 M to 260 M, for example, and the consumable stack up is for the 130 M is not completely until the end of the life. Please try it very easy. Put the electrode, the nozzle and the shield together and put it in one box, and go to the 260 amp or the amperage what you would like to cut. And when you go back to 130, you can use this 3 parts for the old torch. I think this is what you can do easily. And also what I recommend, what I also mentioned before, is that I really see very often that customer mixing consumables for 130 amps and 260 amps, and this is not because people do that because they do it, because it's just a matter of habit. As much often you change something, as much more fault you can do. But try to fix it in also your work table are fixed in 130 amps, 260 amps, and whatever you are cutting, and try to find a good way for organize yourself.
So, but you're saying keep those stacks together. Is that what you're saying?
The three parts has to go together, yes, because this is not cut it until the end of the life. And but when you go back to the 130M, for example, you can use that again until the end of the life, and then you have to change the consumables.
And Timo, I hear from a lot of customers that they are not even changing the water tube at all, or they feel like they don't have to change it for a long time.
Yes.
Is that true, or?
Yes, the water top is for sure also a quite important consumable, but actually you have only to change the water tube when it's really damaged, right? As you have some scratches here, or the water tube falls down and it's broken or stuff like that. But normally you don't have to change the water tube in case there's no big damage on it.
Okay.
And I see another question coming in about the operator dashboard we spoke earlier about. The question is, which other manual actions does the operator dashboard show?
Do you take this one, Steph?
Yeah, that's okay. So Joey mentioned before that we show on the operator dashboard when the operator needs to be at the machine to change the consumables to get the maximum consumable life out of your consumables. But other things which can be shown and which are shown on our operator dashboard are, for example, for when you have a machine with an automatic unloading system, there can be parts which are too big for the automatic unloading system, and then that part needs to be removed from the machine so the machine can continue producing. So that will be a manual action which will be shown on the operator dashboard. And not all of our machines have an automatic brush for the chips. So when the machine performs drilling or milling and there are chips on top of the plate, you can start plasma cutting without removing those chips. So when the operator needs to do that, that's also something which will be shown on the operator dashboard. And another interesting one, I think, is for hybrid milling. We will release that functionality in the next release of FACAM in a couple of weeks. What the hybrid milling basically does is first cutting a contour or a hole with plasma, and then you can mill the last bit of material away to get a high accuracy. But the product which has been cut by plasma needs to be removed because otherwise the mill cannot go into the material. So that's also a manual action which an operator has to perform. So that's also something which is shown on the operator dashboard.
Okay.
I think those are the three main points.
Yeah.
Another question is, what are the disadvantages of forgetting to change the consumables at the right time?
Yeah, basically when you forget to change the consumables on the right time. But again, we recommend a pit depth of 1.3 millimeters. So this is what Hypertherm recommend to get out the best quality. For sure you can cut also much deeper, right? But you can see also on the quality that the quality goes down dramatically. But this is also up to the end user to decide what is important for me. Is the quality important for me or the speed or stuff like that, right? But you have to make sure that the consumables are burned out correctly, because we have also a couple of brochures we can send when you send your email address. I can send you also some brochures how to use in the right size, and that's it. But in the end, it's the quality the biggest problem. Also the surrounded edges, for example, right? You have also, in the end, it's the quality, the main problem.
Yeah.
The next question is, what are the next steps in consumable management?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we already talked about telling the operator when to change consumables, but we also talked about that different customers and different shops have different quality levels. It's not always the same level. So Timo just mentioned it briefly in the last question. Certain jobs that a customer runs have just a lower quality level, so you can still run with consumables. And I think the next step for us is most likely to be able to adapt and provide even more guidelines within the software, what levels of consumable life you could act on based on the quality level, what is desired for the parts.
Yeah.
So that we combine those two.
Okay.
And I think Hypertherm, and I'm not sure if you guys have next steps regarding consumable management.
Yes, we have also great improvement on our HBR torch. It's not officially launched right now, but it will come soon in the future. It's our cartridge consumable. So this is basically the question you ask. You can basically avoid that, because what we are doing with our cartridge is, for example, you have this electrode, the nozzle, the swirling together in one part. So you have actually in some 2 parts, that and also the outer retaining cap, and you need a separate torch. You have only to plug and play it. You don't have to change any settings. You have to use only the torch with the 2 part of consumables. You put it together without to screw something. Just plug and play, and this is an amazing improvement we already have. And it will come soon, definitely, and we will inform you for sure you're interested in. And take a note and send back the question to Voortman, and they will give you all the information you need.
Yeah. This is a very long one. If an operator knows the life of the consumables are about 60 to 70% of its life, and the cut quality for bevels or holes is not completely what they are looking for, should they change when quality is no longer there or when the consumable life is at its end?
Yeah, I think Timo already kind of replied on that question, but I think quality is one of the main drivers. So that should be act on first, and if you feel that it's not what you're looking for, then you should change your consumables.
Yeah.
And over life you have different quality levels, and you should not just, perhaps you can use your consumables for a different job, that could still be possible, or for scrap cutting or for pre-piercing, so different kind of applications. But for those parts, I would just, if you desire higher quality, I would change your consumables indeed. Yeah.
When I jump into this point, I think I understand what he means, because 60-70%, I think not all the time it's related to the consumables, because quality issues have also a lot of other reasons. I mean, the main reason, and 80% what I see in the field is not the consumable problem, is more the gas problem, because you have to check also the gas pressure, because you have a dynamic and static pressure, and that's the important part, because even when I check that, it's completely under the pressure we recommend in the manuals, right? And this is also very important to check out the conditions around the consumables, not even to check the consumable itself. And this is what I can really recommend to you, that you do that. But in our book specs itself, there is in the last pages there are also some recommendation what to do before you start cutting. And when you do that in the morning, to start test flow, pre-flow, all stuff like that, and you can avoid a lot of fouls during the process during the day. I think the consumable part is the easiest part to look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the best combination of factors to consider when looking at electrode wear? Is it the number of starts the most critical factor, or?
I think this is probably the best for you, Timo, to answer.
What is the best combination of factors to consider when looking at electrode wear? Is number of starts the most critical factor? I'm not sure if I understand that question correctly, but when you're talking about starts or meter cuts. When you talk about starts, you have the piercings, right? And when you pierce, you create definitely how to explain it this way? When you pierce, you have the hottest.
The most power is
the
put
most
into
power,
the torch,
exactly.
I think.
Thank you.
So it will burn the most.
And the consumable life goes down immediately during the pierce, right? When you cut meter, you can cut much longer than when you start piercing. That's for sure. But the electrode wear is, I think, you can measure that during that software, for example, when you have 1,000 pierce and you measure the consumables. Okay, now it's time for change. or you have the meters when you know exactly how many meters you cut. But this is an indicator what the operator has to find out for himself. This is not what we really recommend, but in the end, all machines are working a little bit different. And important is that the operator understand, okay, how is my plasma process and how many meters and pairs I really can do with my machine, right? And then you can set up all the settings and
yeah, so it's a combination.
It's
of
a combination
both,
of that. Right?
Meters, starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope I understand you. Give the right comment on your question.
Another question is about the pipe cutting. I saw some pipe cutting in the video as well. Can you explain more about this machine?
Yeah, that's a nice question. It's nice that someone noticed we talked about it. Yeah, it's true that we developed the pipe cutting unit for our plate processing machines. So yeah, it basically is a chuck with some supports, which enables you to cut pipes and mark pipes also on the plate processing machines. So you can do straight cuts, but also bevel cuts. Yeah, and you can mark them. So yeah, that's basically what it does, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and we see for quite a variety of industries, we see that pipe processing is just a small portion of what they do, and having that extra flexibility then on a plate processing line, where plate processing is the main business, that helps those customers. So they don't have to buy a completely separate system, but still have the flexibility to react quickly on those kind of jobs.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. Does Hypertherm also offer plasma training courses in Europe?
Yes. Me as person, I'm responsible for the DACH region and for Scandinavia as a consumable sales manager, and I train operators in this region. But I have also, Hypertherm is also the counter of each countries. We have a consumable sales manager in France, in Italy, in Turkey, in Russia, in Poland. All Europe we cover with a consumable sales manager. But I would prefer that you go in contact directly to your partner, in this case Voortman, and ask him what we can do for the training. And I'm pretty sure we can set up a nice training for you to answer all your questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it. We came to the end of this webinar. If in case your question is unanswered, we of course will come back to you by email. I want to thank you all for watching our webinar, and I of course want to thank you as our speakers. And if you have further questions, do not hesitate to contact us, because on the next page, so hang in there, you will find the contact details of both Hypertherm and Voortman, and you will also see some other nice related topics which might interest you. Thank you for watching again, and we hope to see you next time.